There's a video posted on the basics of bonds payable. There's a video on bonds payable with annual interest rates, and so this is kind of the third in the series where what do we do with bonds payable using Excel if we don't have annual interest rates. So if you're not confused already and have your head tilted, hopefully this will clarify the very last thing that really we can do with bonds to confuse you one more time. So far we've always paid interest annually. So what happens if the interest is not paid once a year? If that's the case, you have to adjust for the number of periods used and you have to adjust the rates. You technically do that annually too, but you're multiplying and dividing by 1, so who cares? You adjust the number of periods because if you notice on your tables, it always talks about periods or payments, not the number of years. So we need to know how many payments you're going to make over the life of the bond. And that's easy enough. You're going to multiply the number of years times the number of payments per year. So if I have a 10-year bond and it's paid semi-annually or twice a year, you'll make 2 times 10 or 20 payments. If the interest is paid quarterly, then you take 4 times 10 and you make 40 payments. So we need to know the number of payments, and that's what we use when we use our formulas. Because we adjust for the number of periods, we've got to change the rates that we use as well. Rates are always given as annual rates, and that's because a long time ago, some unscrupulous lenders were telling people things like, oh, your interest rate is 1%, and forgot to mention that was per month. So you were actually paying around 12% when you thought you were paying 1% a year. So the government said you have to state all rates as annual rates, and that's why you see that APR on most of the credit cards and things that you might see. So the same is true with bonds. You always have to just have an annual rate. But if you have a 6% annual rate, for example, doesn't mean your interest is more where you're paying 6% every 6 months. It means you pay 6% a year. So what we have to do is divide all of our rates, both the coupon and the market, by the number of payments per year. So if you have that 6% bond paid semi-annually, you divide that by 2, since you get 2 payments per year. So that would be 3% per period is how you would compute the interest that you need to pay. We're going to use the same example I did in the other PowerPoints where we have $500,000 worth of bonds that mature in 4 years. The only thing we're changing is now there's semi-annual interest rather than annual interest. If we have semi-annual, that means we make 2 payments per year. So the number of payments you probably could do in your head, but it's the number of years times the payments per year. So 8. We're going to make 8 payments instead of 4 payments because it's semi-annual. Since we changed the number of periods, we also have to adjust our rates. So our coupon rate is 4%, but I'm not going to pay 4% every 6 months. That would give you extra interest. I'm going to pay the 4% divided by 2, or 2% every 6 months. So your payment is 2% times 500,000. So if you're looking at the annual PowerPoint, we paid $20,000 per year. We're still paying $20,000 per year. We're just doing it in 2 installments instead of 1. So our bondholder is actually getting the money a little bit earlier. They don't have to wait till the end of January. That first payment comes in 6 months. Once you get that payment, put a big old line through that interest rate, because that coupon rate you don't use for anything else, even though you might want to. We use the market rate for our present valuing And again, since we're compounding semi-annually, whoops, we need to take that and also divide by the number of payments per year. So I need to compound at a rate of 2.5%. So that's what we want to use in our present value calculation. So if we look at our timeline, this is what it would look like. The only thing that changed, again, instead of one $20,000 payment at the end of the year, now I've got two $10,000 payments. Maturity date stays the same, $500,000 at the end stays the same. It's just that stream of annuities payments that differ. To do the formula, I could type this formula like I showed you, and that's really the quickest way, but to really show you what's going on, it's sometimes a little easier for me to use this one for illustrative purposes. So our rate, I put a line through that first one so I wouldn't make that mistake. So your rate is 2.5%, and you can see that's the number that's picked here. I'm going to do this the long way. Your number of periods, again, is 4 times the payments per year. I could have just pointed to the 8, and I need to get that equal sign out of there. I just kind of get in the habit of doing that. So there's that 8. Your payments, your 10,000, and your future value is the 500,000. So you can see here you've got a present value. Looks like everything's okay. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. So the price of that bond is a little over $482,000. If I want to make it positive, just put a little negative sign there, and that would make it a positive number. So that's how you price the bond with semi-annual interest. The nice thing about how I set this up is I actually can change all sorts of factors and still make it work for me. Scoot this over a little bit so you see what happens. So if I wanted to make it monthly, for example, if I made it monthly, that would mean I had 12 payments per year. So that would be a total of 48. Remember, you multiply 8 times 12 is 48. And then I divide by 5% by 12, and my rate here divided by 12, get my number of payments. Now this table is useless now because it goes over a different number. But you'd have 481,000 as the bond. If I wanted to do quarterly, I could just change that to 4. So now I have 16 periods. I have 1% per quarter, but to come up with the 5,000, I've got 1 1/4 to come up with my present value. And so again, the price of that bond would be $481. And again, I could also go ahead and change this. If I wanted to make it 10 years, I could do that. And if you're a finance major, you could change all the different criteria and see what raises the amount of money you want to raise on your particular bond issue. That's all there is to it. Multiply the number of years times the number of payments per year. Divide all your rates by the number of payments per year. And don't forget, always use that market rate for any present value formulas you use. Have fun.